Man, don't we just love Nintendo? What with their dreamlike world, wondrous music, huge amounts of creativity and imagination, lovable characters, and super fun happy time games, Nintendo are just the happiest, most lovable company ever. Oh, you know that's bullshit, right? Despite the fact that Nintendo is the most kid-friendly video game company ever, they still do have their dark sides, and what better way to portray this than with their gallery of villains? Just like with Disney, Nintendo has created some of the most memorable and iconic villains in video game history, hell, even media in general. From the King of Koopas to a giant alien brain to the Pokemon equivalent of the Devil, Nintendo has created some of the greatest villains of all time. Hell, I'd say that their gallery of villains is better than the gallery of heroes. Man, they really are like Disney. So with that said, I thought it was time to celebrate these beings of evil with a top 10 list dedicated to them because hey, why are you going to root for the heroes in the end? We all want to be the bad guy at some point. Now let's set a few ground rules before we get cracking. Now in most cases, I'd say one character per franchise, but because there are some villains I love too much to keep them off the list, I'm going to throw that to the wind for this countdown. Secondly, I'm talking about straight up villains here, not anti-heroes or rivals, so you won't see characters like Blue from Pokemon or Meta Knight from the Kirby series here. Also, please remember that even though I know of a lot of popular Nintendo villains like Porky from Earthbound or Metal Face from Xenoblade Chronicles thanks to Smash Bros and stuff, I haven't played those games yet and thus haven't got to know the characters properly. And finally, I'm not including any villains that were specifically made for Smash Bros. So no Master Hand, no Crazy Hand, no Master Fortress, no bosses from Brawl, and especially not this cheap motherfucker. And with that out of the way, let's get dangerous. Let's kick off this countdown with the arch nemesis of the face of Nintendo himself, the King of Koopas, Bowser. Now quite a lot of you might be wondering, why did I put Bowser at the bottom of this list considering he's one of the most, if not the most, iconic video game villains in history? Well, the ironic thing is, I actually don't like Bowser in the main series Mario games, since he's pretty much a generic evil tyrant with very little personality outside of being the big bad villain. Not to mention most of his fights are piss easy, and lack any real challenge or impact, though I will admit, his final fight in Mario 64 was pretty amazing. So in terms of being a main series villain, there really isn't much to Bowser. But when it comes to the spin-off games, I love Bowser so much, except for Mario Party, that star-stealing bastard. The Mario spin-off games where a lot of characters in the Mario universe get to shine, and Bowser is no exception. In the Mario sports games, Bowser brings his sheer size and power to the field, allowing you to crush and humiliate your opponents. In the Mario Kart series, Bowser is often one of the fastest characters, ironic I know, and the Bowser Castle courses are some of the best courses in any Mario Kart game. But Bowser's best portrayal is in the Mario RPGs, where he is at his absolute best. In the Mario RPG games, Bowser goes from a bland one-note villain to a hilarious, short-tempered, egotistical, sometimes goofy Koopa with a massive superiority complex. No matter what series, whether it being The Legend of the Seven Stars, Paper Mario, or the Mario & Luigi series, Bowser makes for some of the best moments in those games. Whether it be for the hilarity of his character or being able to actually utilize Bowser's full power with just how strong he really is, don't be surprised if you find yourself rooting for the bad guy. Hell, in Bowser's inside story, Bowser himself gets much more spotlight and character development than the Mario Bros combined. Though I find Bowser an overall weak villain in the main series Mario game, the spin-off titles are where he really shines and lands him in the number 10 spot. He would have got the number 1 slot, but that slot's in another castle. One of the most common forms of an antagonist in any form of media is the Dark Doppelganger, often used as a way of manifesting the dark side of the hero and making the fights between the two much more personal. It's a common trope that has been used more than quick-time events in modern video games, but that's not to say that the overusage of this trope is such a bad thing. If done correctly, Dark Doppelgangers can lead to great villains and great moments in general. I mean, everyone loves the Dark Link boss fight in Ocarina of Time, all Digimon fans squeal when Black Hole Greymon enters the scene, and we all love Dark Pit, don't we? Well, I did say when done correctly. So what happens when you make a Dark Doppelganger the world's greatest bounty hunter? You get 2 sequels to one of the best games ever made, and one hell of an awesome villain. Dark Samus has rightfully earned her place as one of the greatest dark doppelgangers of all time, and for good reason. Not only does Dark Samus fully embody the potential evil of Samus Aran, but she's strong enough to be her own character, as well as being expertly integrated into the Metroid Prime story arc. For those who don't know, Dark Samus was the result of the Metroid Prime absorbing the Phazon in Samus' soup, and was reborn in Samus' image as a being of pure Phazon. From there, Dark Samus went about corrupting everything she came into contact with, in order to spread Phazon throughout the universe. Dark Samus corrupted wildlife, the space pirates, Ridley, and even the 3 hunters from Metroid Prime, and forced Samus to kill her friends because of it. Not to mention the fact that she personally disintegrates them right in front of Samus afterwards. Man, what a heartless bitch! Dark Samus doesn't just look cool, she's also rather sadistic, actively going out of her way to mock Samus whenever she beats her to the punch or prevents her from progressing. Oh yeah, and she killed Rondus! How could you be so evil? Another great thing about Dark Samus are her boss fights. Dark Samus is responsible for some of the best boss fights in Metroid history, from her various encounters in Prime 2 to her climactic final battle in Prime 3 Corruption. Fighting Dark Samus was one of the best moments in both games. Despite dark doppelgangers being one of the biggest cliches for a villain character, Dark Samus is one of the best examples of how this trope can be done right, and is one of the best villains in Nintendo history. For the most part, the villain is the character people are meant to hate, the character that makes you want to root for the hero even more, and villains are often made to look like they are nothing but pure evil and hatred. Occasionally, however, you have a sympathetic villain. A villain who, despite doing evil deeds, has either some resemblance of good in them, or you just can't bring yourself to dislike them. Often these characters tend to start as good people, but somewhere along the line they succumb to the darkness and lost their way. Case in point, you have number 8 on this list, Lion from Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. Bet you didn't see this one coming, most likely because most people sadly don't know who he is, but for those who do, you can understand why I class him as a sympathetic villain, as his story is very tragic and rather upsetting actually. Now, I'm going to have to spoil a lot of Sacred Stones here, so feel free to skip to number 7 spot if you want to avoid spoilers. Lion was the Prince of Grado and close friends with both Ephraim and Erica. His ultimate goal in life was to become a strong king and to help his people despite him being weak and having a rather ill-suited physique. When doing research into forbidden magic, he had a vision of an earthquake consuming and destroying Grado. In an attempt to stop this, Lion came across the Dark Stone and wanted to use his power to save people. And for a while, it worked. He was able to save lives of some of his citizens using the stone's power. Unfortunately, the stone was holding the power of the Demon King inside it, and soon it began to consume him, forcing him to declare war on Renius and fight his most beloved friends. Lion's story is very tragic and heartbreaking, as both roots in Sacred Stones just show how much both Ephraim and Erica meant to him and how much he means to them, as well as his constant struggle to suppress the Demon King. And the worst part of this is, Lion simply wanted to help others. He had no selfish desires or blinding arrogance to motivate him. He just wanted to make everyone happy, which makes this whole story really sad. Lion was also a formidable opponent in-game. Despite having very low stats, Lion has some of the most potent and powerful dark magic spells in the game, which could cause some serious trouble to all manner of units. Not helping us is the fact we fought him multiple times, making the fights with him harder and harder each time. It's always upsetting when someone ends up suffering despite having good intentions, and that's exactly what happened with the case of Lion, and it's this level of complexity and sympathy which lands him a place at the number spot. In another time, in another era, in another world, Lion, you would have made a great king. I think it's high time we talked about the Star Fox series. Well, with it making a turn this year, which is long overdue, the Star Fox series has always hosted a wide assortment of great characters. Well, except for this pathetic sack of shit.
Fox, get this guy off me!
Shut up, Slippy! Anyway, like I said, Star Fox has hosted many great characters, and the main villain Andros is no exception. I mean, boy, do I have a lot to say about this guy.
Can't let you do that, Star Fox.
Houston? I think we have a problem. Well, I really should have seen this one coming. In all seriousness though, I do think Wolf is much better villain than Andros, both as a character and as a boss. Wolf is to Fox as Shadow is to Sonic. both similar in design and skill, but this wolf has some nasty fangs. Unlike the majority of Star Fox villains, Star Wolf isn't some all-powerful dictator or one of Andross' generals. Wolf O'Donnell is the leader of the mercenary group known as Star Wolf, and as such, they are meant for hire and experts in the profession, only being trumped by the legendary team Star Fox. Wolf O'Donnell is the leader of the team, and rightfully so. He's clever, cunning, and a very skilled pilot and fighter, not to mention being incredibly ruthless and brutal, which may sound frightening, but he's also very charismatic. In-game, Star Wolf is home to some of the most memorable moments in Star Fox. The dogfights with Wolf and his team will really test the player's skill and result in some of the best boss fights in the game. Star Wolf is best compared to your rival from the Pokemon series. He's always there to test your abilities, often is the greatest of all foes in the game, and is arguably the best part of the game. Not to mention, Star Wolf finds his way into nearly every Star Fox game one way or the other. Well, almost every game. One last thing to mention was his role in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Despite being a rather out-of-left-field character at the time, many players grew to love Star Wolf, and I am certainly one of them. Wolf was one of the most original clone characters in terms of movesets, as he focused more on slower, more powerful single strike attacks compared to Fox and Falco's multi-hitting combos, which helped to make him stand out on his own, rather than being a clone that no one cares about. Darn it! It was a shame that he didn't come back in Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, but hey, if Lucas and Mewtwo can make it into Smash as DLC, let's hope for Wolf, right? Speaking of...
We dreamed of creating the world's strongest Pokemon. And we succeeded.
Oh boy, now things are really getting dangerous. I know some of you may argue that Mewtwo is more of an anti-hero than a villain, and I can understand why, but personally I've always seen Mewtwo as one of the major Pokemon villains, and by far the best. For those of you who don't know, and I'm going to assume that's 5 of you at this point, Mewtwo was a result of artificially growing a Pokemon from the DNA structure of the Pokemon Mew. Scientists then performed experiments on it to make it the strongest Pokemon in the world, and the result of this was Mewtwo, one of the strongest, most badass and feared Pokemon to ever exist. Mewtwo's power has been shown to be immense in both the games and in other forms of media. In-game, Mewtwo has some of the highest base stats total of any normal Pokemon, only being rivaled by Arceus and Hero. Having ridiculously high special attack and speed, being able to learn a huge variety of moves, Mewtwo is such a destructive powerhouse that players have designed strategies and built teams around the sole purpose of taking down this one Pokemon. And when Mewtwo Mega Evolves, it literally has the highest base stat total of all Pokemon, only being rivaled by Mega Rayquaza. I mean, good Arceus Almighty, this Pokemon is like a force of nature, and is one of the hardest, if not the hardest Pokemon to catch in every generation. But the power doesn't stop there, my friend. The Pokemon anime and Origin OVAs have shown just how powerful Mewtwo really is. I mean, he can create storms through force alone, his ability to mind control people, grow his own artificial Pokemon, and there's even hints that he's killed people. I mean, look what happened to Green in the Pokemon Origins OVA. Also, Mewtwo is one of the most unique characters in the Super Smash Bros. Series, and was loved so much by fans that he was the first DLC character to be announced even before the Wii U version came out. Oh yeah, people love this guy that much. Despite Mewtwo being one of the biggest sources of destruction, he is actually a very interesting and complex character. Sure, when he started out, his goal was to rule over humans and prove that Pokemon were superior beings. Sounds familiar. But later on, he was more focused on finding out his goal in life and wondering how he fits into the world, since he's an artificial clone rather than being a unique individual being. With all his traits at his disposal, you would think I'd place him higher up on the list, but since I'm kind of stretching the idea of him being a villain, he's only going to have to settle for number 6. If there's one thing the internet has taught me, it's that Masahiro Sakurai is one giant troll, and nowhere is this more apparent than in Kid Icarus Uprising. Now say what you want about the game, but you cannot deny that the dialogue in the game is absolutely fantastic. The character interactions and quips at each other are so hilarious and entertaining you could turn it into a stand-up comedy routine. And if there's one thing that the characters love to do, is to troll each other, and nowhere is this more apparent than after the fight with Medusa. You think you've won the game, the source of evil is destroyed, the credits are rolling, you've saved the day, and then...
Hades?
Who's Hades?
The true master of the underworld.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Well... fuck. This character is the very definition of don't judge a book by its cover. Hades may look like a power-hungry destructive god, and well he is, but in reality Hades is a complete and utter troll. Being the true main antagonist of Kid Icarus Uprising, Hades, the Lord of the Underworld, provides some of the funniest conversations in the entire game. His personality is just oozing with sarcasm and arrogance, to the point at which you'll play the game just to hear this guy speak. I'm serious, I could listen to this guy for hours on end and never get bored.
Oh, spoiler alert! When freaky aliens give you lemons, make freaky alien lemonade. It's hilarious how you have no sense of humor.
That's not to say Hades isn't all smiles and laughs, however, as he can actually be rather ruthless at times, as he cares nothing for the importance of life and loves to spread destruction throughout the world. Hades is also without question the best boss fight in the entire game. Now personally, I found the majority of bosses in Kid Icarus Uprising to be incredibly easy and underwhelming. Hades, however, offers a significant challenge and left one hell of an impression on me. His troll-like nature also plays a big part in the game, with the various moments where Hades will outright troll with Pit, either through actively taunting him and winding him up at any given time, or messing with your current level progression one way or the other. It's no wonder why Hades has become such a fan favourite villain these past few years. With so much snark, charm, wittiness and sarcasm practically radiating from this guy, you can't help but love him. Even he is the cause of all misery in the world, but hey, nobody's perfect, right? They say that evil never dies, that it is merely suppressed rather than destroyed, and in time, that evil will once again manifest into a new form. That very same evil can be passed down from generation to generation. It could be centuries down the line, and yet that very same evil will still exist and rear its ugly head once again. In the realm of Hyrule, that evil goes by the name of Ganondorf. His name alone strikes fear into the hearts of mortal men. He wields the power of the gods in his hand, and his power matches their own. He's the ultimate king of evil, the one and only Ganondorf. Whenever someone mentions video game villains, Ganondorf is one of the first characters people think about, and for a damn good reason. Being the main antagonist of the Legend of Zelda series, Ganondorf has always presented a great threat to Link, Zelda and the Kingdom of Hyrule. No matter how many times he is defeated, he will always find a way to return to Hyrule and try to gain the 3 pieces of the Triforce. It may be a different Link and Zelda each time, but there is only one true Ganondorf. Now Ganondorf isn't the villain in every Zelda game, but even then his presence can still be felt, as a lot of the villains either attempt to revive him or are trying to follow in his footsteps. It shows just how much of an impact he has on the realm of Hyrule. Ganondorf encompasses everything that makes a villain great. He's menacing, powerful, clever, calculating, devious, fearsome, skilled in both magic and combat, and can transform into a humongous, terrifying beast. When it comes to being a villain, he has everything. But let's not forget that Ganondorf is responsible for the best boss fights in video game history. Whether it be his duel in the Wind Waker, his 4-part boss battle in Twilight Princess, or his epic final battle in Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf always delivers the goods when it comes to a boss fight. Not to mention, Ganondorf is a ton of fun to play as in Smash Bros. Well, meaning more specifically, but he's still fun to play as regardless. Whenever there's a shadow cast over Hyrule, or a cool chill beginning to fill the air, you can tell that a great darkness is coming. And there's only one name that springs to mind. Ganondorf. For every high, there is a low. For every hey, there is a ho. For every light, there is a dark. For every happy, there is sad. For every victory, there is defeat. For every strong, there is weak. For every good, there is evil. And for every white knight, there is the Black Knight. I don't think any character has had such an impact on me in such a short space of time as the Black Knight. Now, I stated in my last video that I have recently become a fan of the Fire Emblem series, and I thought that the characters were the strongest point of the series, and the Black Knight may just be the best character the series has ever produced. Now there's a lot to discuss with the Black Knight, so let's break this down bit by bit. which unfortunately means I will be spoiling a lot of both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, so feel free to skip to the number 2 spot if you don't want any spoilers. First, let's look at his design. Good God, does this guy look awesome! If Darth Vader ever existed in the medieval times, this is what he would look like. Since his design just screams both power and authority, as he looks like a knight of legend who has never once been defeated. Secondly is his theme music. The theme music of the Black Knight is one of the most intimidating and downright imposing pieces of music composed, and fully embraces and encompasses the sheer amounts of both fear and respect the Black Knight rightfully deserves. Third, his role as a boss character. Fire Emblem games have always had a knack for making their bosses very difficult in order to make sure that the player's skills have developed over the course of the game. But my god, the Black Knight may just be the most powerful character and difficult boss in the Fire Emblem series. Thanks to the armor he wears, the only weapon that can damage him is the sword Ragnar, which Ike wields. Because of this, you can only fight him as Ike, and even then, his stats are so damn high that you'll be lucky just to scratch this guy's armor. And even if you max out Ike's level, he still takes a lot of hits to defeat, and can dish out just as much damage as you, even more at some points. But these traits alone aren't what makes the Black Knight such a great villain. It's his personality and backstory that makes him such a strong character. Well, it is a Fire Emblem game, so what did you expect? In Path of Radiance, the Black Knight was first seen fighting and eventually killing Ike's dad, and played a huge part in the Mad King's War, as he pretty much wiped out anyone who stood before him, and greatly added to the strength of the Daean army. During the fight with Ike, the castle around them collapses and the Black Knight is assumed dead. Skip to 3 years later, and the Black Knight suddenly returns to aid Micaiah in taking back the country of Daean from the Benian army. It is then later revealed that the Black Knight is really General Zelkius, the general of the Benian army, and that it was both him and Sephiroth, the Prime Minister of Benion, who instigated the Mad King's War, as well as the current war between Benion and the Laguz Alliance, in order to awaken the goddess so that the world could be wiped clean and reset from the ground up. Man, he really is a medieval Darth Vader! While this sounds like an evil scheme, and well, it is, Zelkius' backstory reveals that he is half human and half Laguz, also known as a Brandon. And because of this, he was shunned from both the humans and the Laguz, and as such, he felt he couldn't ever get close to anyone in case they found out who he really was. And because of this, he wanted to reset the current world into one where this type of racism didn't exist. His personality is also rather enticing, since despite being a knight of darkness, he's actually very chivalrous and well-mannered, and even rather charming and articulate in places, which makes his motivation all the more understandable, as he could have been one of the most respected knights throughout Tellius without having to hide who he really is. Fire Emblem has always promoted itself on having very complex and intriguing characters, and the Black Knight is one of the best villains and characters in the entire series. Now, the majority of villains in any form of fiction always have a particular goal in mind to fuel their diabolical actions. Sometimes it's fame and fortune, sometimes it's revenge or a grudge, sometimes it's for pure power and world conquest, and sometimes it's for their own sick sense of justice. But then you get villains who do it just for fun. The kinds of characters that cause unprecedented amounts of pain and suffering in order to get a laugh and have a quick chuckle. These are often the worst and generally scariest types of villains, as they can't be reasoned with or persuaded. They do what they want to and don't care what happens as a result. And if you happen to run into one, all I'd have to say is, you've met a terrible fate, haven't you? In all my years of playing video games, I have never seen a more controversial, unique, and downright disturbing video game character than Majora, or more accurately, Majora's Mask. Ever since the release of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask back in 2000, so many people have had different experiences and interpretations of the Majora's Mask. In terms of what it is, what it does, why it does what it does, what it represents, you can write a damn book about this thing. But I'm not everyone's, and I'm only going off my interpretation of Majora. All I can say is that Majora is one of the best things to ever be produced in fiction. Majora encompasses everything seen as evil, and gladly spreads pain and misery to anyone in its way. Whether it being changing a man into a child, manipulating a naive, helpless child into doing your bidding without questioning, forcing you to change into a completely different species, and causing the freaking moon to crash onto the land, causing everyone to die in the process and bring about the apocalypse, nothing is too extreme or cruel for Majora. This reflects not only its personality and actions, but also its design and boss battles. The Majora's Mask itself is one of the best examples of video games being another form of art. The mask is so well designed with so many different elements and features that any one person can look at it and see something completely different to another. Some can see it as beautiful, others as terrifying. It could be unique, it could be shallow, it could reflect someone's inner demons, or just a fantastical piece of polygons. The boss fight with Majora is also a spectacle to experience, as it's split into 3 stages with each one representing Majora's insane personality. The first stage is fighting the mask as it throws all sorts of attacks at you in a very uncoordinated manner, showing off its childlike playfulness. The second stage has you fighting its incarnation, as it moves around the stage at ridiculous speed, making all sorts of strange movements and noises, doing attacks at random and flip-flopping between a threat and a joke, showing off Majora's insanity and lack of control. And finally you must face Majora's wrath, as it attacks you with precise deadly strikes, using dual-wielding whips and taking a more demonic and threatening form and physique, as well as actively taunting and mocking you, showing Majora's sadistic and cruel nature. Majora truly is a unique and fascinating specimen. Never have I seen a character have so many different interpretations, as well as the subject matter surrounding them. And even though everyone has their own views and opinions on Majora, my opinion is that he's one of the best villains ever created. But then again, I'd expect no less from the greatest game ever made. So we've reached the number 1 entry, the best villain Nintendo has ever created. Now in most cases I would build up the reveal of this character and make some sort of clever analogy about them, and well I originally was going to, but this guy was a little too big for the list. This should come as no surprise to those who have been watching my channel for some time now. I've made no attempt at hiding my love for the Metroid series, as well as how much I want Ridley to be a playable fighter in Smash Bros. So you lot should have seen this coming from a mile away. For everyone else, you might be wondering, why did I put Ridley in front of villains like Ganondorf, Hades, and Majora? Well, aside from the fact that Ridley is a giant purple dragon, space pirate general, main villain of the Metroid series, and most recurring character next to Samus herself, Ridley is one of the more unique and different Nintendo villains. Let's look at other Nintendo villains for comparison. Bowser wants Princess Peach, Ganon wants the Trifles, King K. Rool wants bananas, and Wario wants money. What does Ridley want? How about death and destruction along with the mass production of some of the most dangerous creatures and substances in the entire universe? So yeah, Ridley's quite a sadistic bastard, but that's what's so refreshing about him. He's not goofily or morally ambiguous villain. Ridley is 100% straight up evil in every sense of the word. Ridley's role as the main villain of the Metroid series is also more than just being a recurring boss. For those who don't know, Ridley attacked the space colony Samus was living on at a very young age. During the raid, Samus tried to befriend Ridley, saying that she's not scared of him and wants to be friends with him. Ridley responded to this by saying he's going to kill her. Like I said, sadistic bastard. Samus' mother saves Samus, but dies in the process, and her father tries to take down Ridley by blowing himself up. This doesn't work, however, as Ridley is able to heal himself by eating human flesh. He even mocks Samus when he next encounters her years later by saying that he possibly ate her father. Did I mention he's a sadistic bastard? Since then, Ridley has made appearances in the majority of Metroid games, cheating death at every occasion and being one of the biggest obstacles Samus has to face. Speaking of obstacles, Ridley is responsible for some of the best, if not the best boss fights in every Metroid game. Even video gaming in general. From his first appearance on the NES, to his expertly built up fights in Super Metroid Fusion and Other M, to his epic confrontations in Prime 1 and 3, Ridley's battles are something every Metroid fan looks forward to. Finally, I'd like to bring up Ridley's theme music. Man, oh man, is this theme awesome. Ridley's theme has been remixed so many times, it could be right up there with the likes of the Vampire Killer or Dr. Wily Stage 1. Hell, Smash Bros. On the Wii U has 3 versions of his theme on the Pyrosphere stage, and even Metroid Other M, a game that is despised by the Metroid fanbase, not counting me. Ridley's theme is the one thing everyone likes about that game, which is why he takes the number 1 spot as my favourite Nintendo villain of all time. This has been CRASHX500's. I hope you guys have a great night, take care, and if Smash Bros. Roster needs more villain characters, please explain why half of these villains aren't playable, but yet Dark Pit is.